You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Hello and welcome to another episode with Michael Wilkinson. Michael, the Facilitator Wilkinson, is our guest. He's the founder of Leadership Strategies, the largest professional facilitation company in the nation. He's written 7 books on facilitation, including the 8 core practices of facilitative leaders. He helps leaders around the globe use facilitation to achieve amazing results through their people. Welcome, Michael.
Well, it's my pleasure. And thank you for having me as a part of this and extending, as we like to say, sharing the power of facilitation with the world.
Absolutely. Well, let's dig into that juiciness. First of all, can you just briefly explain what facilitation is and what it's not? Because we want to get clear for people that don't know what
That's
it
a
is.
good one.
Yeah.
So you know what leaders generally do? They think of themselves as directors. Look, you do this, you do this, you do this. And they're treating people like hands and feet. We believe you can get the most from your people by engaging their minds, by getting them involved. So facilitation, really at its core, it's about 3 words. They create it, they understand it, they own it. So how do you get people to create, accept, and own? And so there are 8 core practices that facilitative leaders use that really get that power happening. And it's really cool stuff, and really love the idea of just spreading that word and getting more users and more leaders really understanding how to use it.
Okay. So basically, it's involvement with the team and making all that juicy stuff happen, correct?
That's right. But think about why they don't do it, though. When you think about it, it's, well, suppose people disagree. What do we do? Or, suppose they don't accept my idea. What do I do? So instead of even getting involved in that, they just make decisions on their own, as opposed to getting the people in the room impacted by the decision involved in doing it.
Okay.
Because that takes facilitation. That takes some core skills.
So it's involving all stakeholders. Okay. So now I happen to know that you have 8 core principles of facilitation. What are those?
We have a book.
There you go. Okay.
It's great. Let me run them through, and I'm going to go really quick with these. And in fact, let me set you up, because I really would love to hear from you. Of these 8, which is the one that if you were going to get better at, it would be, and I'm going to bias you because I'll share which one's mine, because it's still, I'm still working.
Don't tell me what yours is.
Okay. So we'll go through the 8 and I'll mention mine. So number 1, start with the why. Not with the how, because leaders want to say, do this, do this, do this. Engage their people with starting with the why. Simon Sinek made that big, and it's really key to facilitate leadership. 2, understand and empower your people. Don't command and control, because you need to know, who do I direct? Who do I need to tell? Who can I coach? And who can just delegate to? So understand and empower. That's in the 8 spell the word succeed. So we got the S, start with the Y. 2, understand and empower. 3 is communicate in their language, not yours. Leaders can be so much effective when they're using their people's language. 4, and this is mine, connect first, correct second. See, my creator made me as someone who's great at seeing where things need to be improved. But you probably know most people don't want to be improved, right? They want to do it on their own. So you've got to connect first, correct second.
Okay.
Then the E, equip for success, monitor for results. And so there are 8 reasons that teams are successful. And so any leader knows they've got to equip them with those 8 things. And this is about what that's all about. Then this is the one that's most controversial. The second E, engage conflict, encourage disagreement. So see, most leaders, they want to walk into a room and say, okay, everybody, I think we should do this. And you know what happens?
Yep.
That's all that happens. But if they could just open themselves up and make it okay for disagreement, it sounds like this. Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you like about it? Cool. How do we make it better? Someone says, well, let's do this. Someone says, well, that's good, but how about this? Then how about this? So you end up with something like this instead of this, because they encourage disagreement.
Okay.
Then the last 2, the D is drive strategic thinking throughout the organization. See, the more people you have thinking strategically instead of tactically, it makes a difference. So how do you drive strategic thinking? It starts with vision, having a clear vision. And then the last, start, execute, and close every meeting masterfully. Most leaders spend 50% or more of their time in group meetings, one-on-one meetings, whatever it is. Those things have to be effective, and facilitative leaders know how to do that. So those 8. So I'm wondering, which one of those 8 would you say is your baby?
I would say the connect first, correct later is probably my downfall.
Oh,
You know,
yeah. Yeah, and that's many
because
of
I
us.
do like, telling people the why, and I explain that, and they understand. I really want them to be empowered, and we do a lot of training so they're successful. I do try to communicate in their language, and I kind of do that naturally because I
Yeah,
lived around the world and I was an actress, and I just sort of intuitively use their language back at them without thinking.
that's good.
Equipping for success, monitor for results. Yes, we're doing that. I actually say, hey, make me wrong here. You know, like
I
because
applaud that.
I want them to say, yeah, but because then they might come up with an idea, or they're going to say something, and I'll be like, let's think about that, and then we talk about it when they realize that maybe my way was better, or maybe we find a different way, or something in between.
Oh, John, that's wonderful. That
I
is
actually,
fantastic.
there's something I do. Make me wrong here. Like make me wrong, and they're like, well, I think we should do it this way. And I'm like, okay, actually, it's a good idea. Let's do it your way.
I'm going to add something to the second edition of that book.
Okay.
Make me wrong here. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. That is really
I
good.
mean, people like to make you wrong, and I say it that way, just make me wrong here. What they're like, okay. And well, I'm really about strategic thinking, always, and I love with my team. I'm like, hey, if you come up with something better, just tell me.
Yeah.
I want ideas, and I say, look, I like ideas, I want ideas. So yeah. And then the meetings, I think I'm pretty good about like making that positive start, positive finish, and then in the
Hmm.
in between, here's what's going well, blah 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 blah, and also privately telling people things
Being
aren't
focused
working.
there.
Well, also,
Yep.
you praise people publicly, and then give them strategic stuff privately.
Applauding you
Yeah,
once more.
thank you. I learned that because I didn't
I want
used
to
to
go
do
deep,
that.
though, on that connect first and correct second. I just want to
Mm,
share a story from my own background because you mentioned that's the one.
mm,
And so, absolutely true story.
mhm,
This was back 30 years ago when I was an IT consultant. I was project managing a project to get a payroll system in
mhm,
500 convenience stores across the US. Huge
mhm,
project, 6 months.
mm,
We were nearing the end of month 1, Sean, month 1, and nearing the end. And the CFO, the chief financial officer, the sponsor comes in and says, Michael, you're doing a terrible job.
mhm,
Terrible. I was
mhm,
just talking to the controller. He doesn't understand how this new payroll system is going to update your balance sheet accounts. Would you get on the stick? Then he
mhm.
walked away. We call that seagull management.
That's just
You
like
fly
dumping
in.
on somebody.
Exactly. You know it. So here's the deal. Now, I mean, I've only been truly upset 4 times in my life, only 4 times.
That's amazing.
I was absolutely livid. See,
Mm,
I was working until 8, 9, 10 o'clock every night, busting my butt because
mm,
I wanted that to be the best payroll system ever implemented in the history of man. I mean,
mhm,
I was motivated.
mhm,
He was asking me about something that you would do in month 2.
mm,
And we were at the end of month 1, and it was
mm,
busting my chops. I was just livid. Now,
mm.
but what if he had walked into my office and said, Michael, I know you're putting a lot of work in this project and
Yeah,
all the extra time.
validation first,
I
yes.
really appreciate it.
Mm,
But could you do something for me?
mm,
In fact, put it at the top of your priority list.
mhm,
Would you meet with the controller? He's upset, yada, yada, yada. Could you do that for me?
mm.
I would have said, sure, great. And you know what? I would have walked away with an important lesson. One, here is what facilitative leaders do.
Yeah.
They let people know, I see you.
Mm,
I see you.
mm.
And here's what I need you to adjust.
Right.
Instead, you know what I got? This ungrateful so-and-so. I mean, I was so pissed
Terrible,
off.
terrible. You don't get the best work out of people that way, for sure.
Exactly.
Mm,
Connect first, correct second.
right.
And every leader needs to understand that that's a key to facilitation.
Absolutely. And none of us are perfect, and we're busy, and it's like, hey, you have 3 minutes, like, hey, that didn't work. So, sometimes I'll still be like, hey, note, let's fix that. But because it's just a voice note, right? But then I'm thinking, oh, I should have said, how are you today? Please fix it.
You got it.
Please fix this. So anyway, okay, awesome. Now, you've written how many books now?
Oh my gosh. Total 5 books on facilitation and 3 additional ones. So 8 books total.
Okay. Now, this is interesting. It's a different question because you've been talking about the technical stuff. What's the main thing that you've learned about human beings in this work? Because you have the
Mm,
largest facilitation company in the nation, and you
there we
work
go.
globally, and you've written a lot of books. So, what's just the biggest lesson you've learned about human beings doing this vast number of years with this work?
And that's a very fair question. And how do I say this? I was doing the work for a long time. And then I was working with this Professor Robert Zawacki, University of Colorado. We were doing work at Sears. He mentioned a formula in his discussion. And I said, that's it. I'm going to use that as the fundamental formula of facilitation because it explains it all in just one simple formula. And I know you didn't come thinking you're going to use algebra today, but it's ED equals RD times CD. I mean, it's fundamental. The D is the same word. ED, an effective decision, equals RD. And the R is a simple word, right decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, put a period in it. Effective decision equals the right decision. He said, no, times CD, commitment to the decision.
Ah.
See, if you as a leader in your business, Sean, if you know what the right decision is, but your people have zero commitment to it,
Mm-hmm.
how effective? Zero. Your clients, you know exactly what your clients need to do. But if they have zero commitment to it, how effective? Zero.
Mm,
Anything times zero. So the key is most people figure out what the right decision is and then try to build commitment
mm,
of facilitative leaders. And what I discovered was that if you do those two things at the same time,
mm-hmm.
get the people in the room impacted by the decision,
Mm-hmm.
involved in creating it,
Mm.
they will own it
Okay, let's
and it
go through
will
that
get
again.
implemented.
ED stands for
Effective decision,
effective decisions equals right decision
yes,
times, then this ED
commitment to the
decision.
decision.
Okay,
And it's a multiplication sign.
got it. Okay,
Yeah.
now let's go back to my question. I love that. I heard
Yeah.
you repeat
So
that
that's the
twice.
most important thing I've learned that about human nature, that if you get them involved,
Mm,
they will own the results.
right. Now, a lot of people are talking about this now, so it's not like, y'all thought of this. So
Well, no, it's just most people aren't doing
they're
it.
not doing
Most
it,
people,
but there is a lot about that involving the stakeholders, and we've been talking about this for quite a few years in leadership, okay? And your company is successful in doing that, right?
yes.
Okay.
And they're calling it engagement
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
they're getting confused
Ah.
because they think engagement means involvement,
Mm.
right? Hey,
Mhm.
we'll survey people. That's engagement. Hey, we'll have a focus group. That's engagement. No. When they create it, so
Mm.
you want them at the table,
Right, in the
not being treated
creation.
as a focus group.
Right, involvement not in your opinion, but in their creating it together because they've studied this with children and students that when they have actually helped create something, they're way more invested in it because they're
Absolutely.
part of it. What's
That's
also
it.
it's also like creating productions, like theater productions. If people write,
You
direct,
understand.
do the costumes, because I used to be an actress, the stakeholders are more involved if we helped write, direct, act in it, blah blah blah, because it's ours collectively.
So it's ours.
Yes,
We own it.
yes.
The challenge is, as I said, people have knew about involvement. They've equated engagement with involvement.
Mm, mm,
You know the difference.
yes,
Engagement isn't involvement. Engagement is in creation.
right,
That makes a
exactly.
difference.
Okay, so the difference is involve them in they're co-creators. Make them all. That's it. Make them all co-creators.
Well said.
That's it.
Well said.
But
Well,
then we're
this is my
skipping
third
over a lot of things.
applause to you today. Third time.
There
That's
you go.
exactly right.
So basically, the bottom line is make everybody a co-creator, and then they're going to be more invested in
Yes.
everything, and they're going to want to be more interested in the outcomes.
So let me ask you, if that is true,
Mm,
and you and I both know that is true, you know it from your theater experience,
mm.
why don't most leaders do it?
I'll tell you why. I was just thinking that while you were talking.
Yeah, please. Why don't
There
they?
are certain things, like for instance, just in my little business, all of my team members cannot co-create it because that's not their skill. Okay. They can co-create parts of it after I've created something, but it would be wrong with me to say, hey, I want you to help me with this, course that I'm creating, because it's not their skill set. So there's parts in certain businesses. Now, if you're talking about a team in a corporation, that is different. That's not how I work. I just have VAs, right? So certainly they could help me create some of it, some people, but some will not. It's not their skill set. And sometimes I've made the mistake of asking people to do things that really isn't their skill set, because I like pushing people beyond their boundaries. And then I realize actually that really just wasn't in their skill set, and they're probably never going to be able to do that. That's okay. I
There we
tried.
go.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
And you're right. And sorry to be so direct here, but you're right. That's called mismanagement. When we delegate to somebody who really needs to be
Exactly.
directed, right? You will mismanage them.
Yep.
And worse is when you direct someone who you really should be delegating to,
Yes.
they'll call you a micromanager.
Yep.
So all there.
Yep.
But what we find though, and you have an elevated consciousness, it's clear. And so you're doing these things. So your thought of why they aren't doing them is because of, hey, you can't do it with everybody. And you figured out already that you do what's appropriate with everybody.
Yes.
Right? That's true. But the reason we find that most leaders don't do it
is because they don't have time. Sorry?
They don't know how.
Also,
They don't know how to facilitate. So we say, newsflash, there's a book. Here's how you do it.
The biggest thing that I think you're not addressing, that I've tried to address a little bit here and there.
Yes, please.
Time. People, it's much easier, even as moms, moms end up doing all the chores in the house because it takes less time to just do it yourself than train your children. And I used to do that. And then finally I worked with like a child psychologist, me, not my kids. And he said, you're doing far too much for your children. He said, I get it. Single mom, much easier just to do it quicker. I said, yes. He says, wrong. He said, you need to actually take time to train your children, even though it seems like you don't have time. In the end, they're learning skills and you will get more time because they're helping with the chores. Sure enough, I thought, okay, take a minute. So it's kind of an investment in the time up front.
Exactly.
But a lot of people are like, no, I'm too busy, right? Because that's a whole chunk of time in training people. So it's really about investing in the time chunk, because later on you will get a good return on your investment.
Huge. In fact, you've said it. We say there are two major barriers to delegation. It is time and it's trust. Both those two things. And there are specific strategies for addressing each of these. But let's just focus on time for a second. And you've said it already. You are absolutely right. It takes more time to coach. It takes more time. It just takes more time. You can do it yourself. It takes more time that time. It takes still more time the second time, but less. The third time, even less. But on the fifth or sixth time, it's taking you much less time.
Exactly.
Because you've invested, just as you said, the time.
Right.
And so if you think about it, folks who don't do it are short-sighted. They're not being strategic. They're being tactical. And we're back to that principle.
Yes, it's short-sighted because it's never going to get better.
Exactly.
Right,
so they have to drive strategic thinking throughout their organization, starting with themselves. Right? What's my vision here? Do I want to be doing this for the rest of my life? Do I want to be is that my vision? Or is my vision having independent children able to operate on their own?
Exactly.
Then align your activities with your strategic vision. Without a strategic vision, you'll be making every decision tactically.
Yes, exactly. Well, I did do it. It was hard because I had to pull myself away.
It is hard.
Okay, we're going to train you on this. And sure enough, it worked. They learned how to cook and clean. And I'm still thanking that therapist that I worked with, because
isn't that wonderful?
I didn't think he was going to say that. I think he was going to say, great, you're being a good mom. You're doing. He said, no, you're doing too much for them.
Yeah.
And he goes, I know you're just trying to be a good mom, trying to get it done, get them in bed.
Get it done.
It's a single mom curse. He said, you just get it done. So I did, and I had to take a deep breath and go, okay, I'm just going to take the time, be patient, and it paid off. So I don't want to, compare children to. We're all human beings, right?
It's the same thing.
We're all human beings, right?
It's the same thing.
Michael, thank you for sharing all that. And what got you into all this?
Oh, fair question. And my story, if you were to look up affirmative action in the dictionary, you would see my face. Right? I mean, you really would. I mean, just really quick snippets from that story.
Yeah.
So I'm 67 years old. So if I took you through that, just real quick snippets. So I grew up family of 6. Right. We were poor. I mean, we were, to say, in our neighborhood, we would say, one family would say, well, we're so poor, the roaches will eat up all our food. We say, we're so poor, we don't have roaches.
Wow. Amazing.
There's nothing there.
So you were the poorest people in your neighborhood.
Yeah. Yes.
What neighborhood was that?
So for those who don't know Washington, D.C., it's Anacostia, which was the government housing projects, the tough neighborhood back then. My sisters at 6, we were called the Sesame Street gangsters. This is before gangs were even popular. So we were, tying kids to trees and leaving them out all night. Really bad stuff.
You were doing that.
I moved away, got into we moved from lower class to middle lower class to the suburbs of Maryland. The kids were building clubhouses. They had chess clubs, and environment matters. So if that's what they were doing, that's what we started doing, my brothers and sisters. Ended up getting a paper route back when they had paper boys. Became a poster with the Washington Post, carrying papers for them, and ended up through the Post, got a scholarship to a prep school. Up in New England prep school. I mean, where, at General Patton's grandson, the Luares of Long Island, the Stacks of Greenwich, Connecticut. I mean, these folks were those folks. And then there was me, this kid from...
Well, you must have been pretty smart to get in on that, right?
Well, how about this? I did a study my senior year comparing grades and test scores. The controller gave me the test scores for everybody in my class. But he stripped off the names for privacy reasons. He left them in alphabetical order. So finding Wilkinson wasn't that hard in a class of 50. To say that my test scores were low compared to everybody else would be an understatement. They were so low, they clearly pulled me out, right? A nice affirmative action. But Sean, I graduated 5th in the class.
Wow.
So was it fair that I took someone's place? Because I clearly took someone's place. Is that really fair? No, I took someone's place. But was it fair that I didn't have the opportunities that other kids had? Absolutely not.
In the first place, yes, I understand. I see the logic.
So for this kid, it made a difference. Went on to Dartmouth, started a career in IT. It was fantastic, was growing fast. Then learned facilitation. We would be facilitating sessions with users where we would interview people. And that's what we used to do, individual interview them. My last 2 years with the organization, we'd bring groups together and get them talking together. And that used facilitation skills. I loved it. And so in 1992, I left Ernst & Young, started Leadership Strategies, the facilitation company, world headquarters, my second bedroom. It was great.
Wow.
Right. And today, 30 years later, we're the largest provider of professional facilitators in the country. We have over 600 facilitators under contract, 27 members of our core team. We've trained over 35,000 people in facilitation skills, written 5 books on it, travel internationally talking about. And my personal theme is just sharing the power of facilitation with the world. Facilitation works if you work it. So more leaders need to understand that formula, ED equals RD times CD, and more importantly, how to use it to help their people and their company excel. So that's who I am.
Wow. I just was so moved by that. You're so passionate about what you do. You're so proud of you. You've come so far. I mean, so, you took somebody else's place, but as you said, it wasn't fair in the first place. So, whatever. So, you know what?
Right.
It's meant to be somehow.
It was meant to be. Our creator took care of me.
What a success you are. And you're in preferment right now. You told me you're not retired. You're doing what you prefer, but you still the company is being run, which is great. So I'm going to ask that question again before we close. Okay. You did share with me what you learned about human beings. ED equals RD times CD. Okay. I love it. But now just on a human level, let's bring it down a little bit you're an IT guy, you're technical. I get it. Okay. Let's just bring it down like human values. What have you learned about human beings? Not about your algorithm. That's mathematics.
I love it.
Okay. Really, let's drop down into this now.
Yes.
You've had a lot of experience working with people.
Yes. Well, this one I have to...
what have you learned about human beings doing all this work?
Turn over to my wife, who is a marriage therapist. And this is second marriage for both. So we've been together 5 years. And the thing she's taught me, and my friends all say, Michael, you've gone from being a machine to being human. It would be called how really to be emotionally responsive and how the importance of that. So if we were married and you did something and you were mad at me for doing something that I know I didn't do anything wrong. I knew I didn't do anything wrong. My natural response would be to say, hey, Sean, you may be upset about that, but that had nothing to do with me. Here's what happened. Wrong answer, right? Emotionally responsive means, you know what? It hurts me that my action upset you like that. And clearly, this has put you in a place that doesn't work for you. And I never will want that to happen. So I'm really sorry that my actions have caused that. If it's okay, I'd love to explain to you why I thought it was okay. Learning to go there first. Respond to the emotion first, not to the action. That you can be so much more successful when someone comes to you inside your company with what you think is a dumb idea. Bad to respond to the idea first. Respond to the emotion first. You know what? I really appreciate your taking the time to bring this to me. Let me tell you what I like about your idea. And here are some concerns I have. So I'm going to have to think about it. But you've got which really says a lot about you that you were willing to put this forward. It's a whole different conversation. And it just learning to the value of people first. Respond to the emotion.
You've learned that. Okay, and you've changed, and you got married at the age of 63, by the way, because I'm pretty good at mathematics, 68 minus 5. So, okay, so you've learned this fairly recently? Okay.
Yes.
And did you learn that
Yes.
from observing other people? And that
Oh, no, this is as talking with my wife, the marriage therapist, and talking about her business and understanding what she was doing made me realize, oh, okay, so she's written her book, The Portia Principles, the 8 core,
okay.
the 8 strategies for creating and sustaining a lifelong honeymoon. So that's her stuff. And so,
Wonderful.
yes.
Okay, so I have a question. We still talked about you, but do you feel like this is the main thing you learned about them, is that they're not
Yes.
responding to the
So
emotional
broadly.
side first and more the
Yeah.
strategic? Broadly. Okay, so that is very interesting that you've noticed across the board that you're not the
Yes,
only one that was
absolutely.
doing this. That you've noticed people are responding to
Right.
strategy, to
Yes.
tactic, to what do we do, rather than putting that to the side and saying, okay, let's have an emotional response
Yes.
first, then we'll get down to business. So interesting. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. And one more thing before we close the show. It's been
Oh, you are
highly
so good at what you do. I guess that's why you're so successful.
well, thank you. So now, what is some mindset that you want to leave people with? Like if you were
Mm.
met somebody, I like saying it this way. Let's say you were walking through Grand Central Station in New York and you bump into somebody and you have a little meeting, but you're never going to see that person again. So you're not trying to sell them something or have them buy your book or anything like that. What would you tell them about life as a philosophy or a mindset?
And you already know that answer, right? You already know that formula. You already know. And I would say it to them in a way that they could understand it, but the
Mm,
message would be the same. Hey, if you want people to follow you,
mhm,
and if you want to personally be successful, remember that ED equals RD times CD.
mm,
It's not about getting to the right decision.
mm,
It's about their commitment to the decision you get to.
mm.
So
Okay.
you really want to maximize that. You want to get as the best decision you can get that they completely buy into so that they will own. They
Mm,
will drive the success of your organization if you
mhm.
focus on that.
Okay, now pretend the person is not a business person, okay?
Okay.
So I'm just talking about
Oh,
life now,
just in life.
just in life.
Okay.
'Cause not everything you did was all about your facilitation. I know it became your life, but
Well,
you went through a lot of stuff. You're from
yeah,
poor household. You got this, good golden ticket. You got the golden ticket in, Willy Wonka, the golden ticket.
that's right.
And you got in there and then you dealt with a lot of things in your life. Okay, what's the mindset just about life in case they're not a business person?
There we go. Now we go into my spiritual world, which is
Okay.
fairly deep. The surprisingly, perhaps, the spiritual lesson that gets me through every day, gets through every situation. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just, okay, God loves me and wants me to be happy. I know that. So everything that happens in my life is leading me to that happiness. So I've had some other things happen in my life that people would think would be just disastrous. And I could say okay, God's got this. Let's see where this, God loves me, wants me to be happy. I know this is for my good. So let me just see how this turns out. What's here? And it allows me to be at peace,
So the
completely at
advice
peace.
for other people is?
Yeah, recognize that God loves you and wants you to be happy. And so
There we
you
go.
can walk in peace.
Okay, that is beautiful. We got a mic drop there. So Mike, the mic drop, we got a mic drop from Mike. That was not intentional. So Mike, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for turning up and spending
my
your
pleasure.
energy, time, and love here. And thank you everybody for listening. I hope you really enjoyed this one. And obviously it helps if you share, like, love it, and turn up again. We'll see you on the next one. You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.